Hi everyone, welcome back. From North America, we're in New Orleans, Louisiana. Now, to make a long story short, my phone was stolen. On this screenshot here, in the upper left is my iPad, the bottom right in Algiers Point is where my phone ended up. On the first morning on my way to Philadelphia International, got a picture of Philly skyline while crossing over the Delaware River. Both of these photos were taken from the Walt Whitman Bridge. And from there until I just about reached New Orleans, not many photos. This is Lake Pontchartrain, currently over Louisiana. And right there's the Mississippi River, right before landing. The hotel where I stayed was a few blocks from the heart of the French Quarter, and it's right where the Trem neighborhood began. This was the back pool area. Again, not the greatest photos, but just to give you an idea. I didn't have many photos up until Teresa came, but I did take this photo on my iPad of my muffaletta sandwich. Now those first couple days I was there, I didn't do much. Eventually Teresa did arrive from Spain. Her first night there, we just went to a couple spots on Bourbon Street, tried some food, and listened to some music. Photos from the next day. We saw Wicked in theaters, went to Cafe du Monde to get some beignets, and listened to some more music.
Darling, kiss me, fill my heart with song, and let me sing forever. I just knew too much.
Again, I am sorry, this entire video is just a collage of random clips for me to somewhat show you how the trip went. Now, this is the next morning. We got to see a little bit of, well, around Jackson Square. At this point in the photos, we're just trying to find somewhere for breakfast, and we did on Charter Street. We're just trying to kill time because eventually we had a day tour. I believe we had like an hour or so up until the tour started, but it was right next to the Mississippi River. So in the meantime, we just walked along the promenade there. Now, fair warning, this area is where a lot of the shoe scammers are located, and those are the people that try to say, I bet I can tell you where you got your shoes at. Just say, on my feet in New Orleans, God bless, and keep walking. Just take my word for it, they're trying to trick you, and they're just going to say that that's where you got your shoes at, and then try to say you owe them $50 for winning the bet. A little piece of advice. Now, the day tour was fun. I was just disappointed because a lot of it I don't remember, and a lot of times I take pictures and video along the way, and that's kind of how I have like my cliff notes. So we just walked around the French Quarter, checked out a few homes, you know, got to see some of the typical sites within the French Quarter. After our guide suggested a couple different spots for lunch or dinner, so we decided to head down to Bourbon and check out one of them. The place we ended up having lunch at was NOLA Po Boys. And yeah, they had like one of the biggest menu selections of things to get there, and it was pretty cool. In between that, we stopped and got coffee. Teresa liked this photo because of the painting behind me. And then we made it to Steamboat Natchez. Yeah, reserved the river cruise. I believe it was around 2 hours long. We went 1 hour one way outside of right next to Chalmette, I believe is what it's called. And then we took the hour back, and that again was 2 hours. So, like, this is Chalmette's oil refinery. I like that industrial look and whatnot, but either way, you know, just some random photo opportunities. And this is the good view of New Orleans. Far left is the Central Business District. To the right is the French Quarter. And I zoomed in on St. Louis Cathedral. Some of these photos, I look like a dork. You know, again, Teresa took them, so it's her fault. Now we're coming up on the Crescent City connection. And those are the twin bridges you always see in the photos, which I've always liked because in the video game Left 4 Dead 2, a good portion of it takes place in New Orleans, and one of the final map, I think it is though, takes place on those bridges. It may sound simple to you guys, but it was one of my favorite parts of the trip.
What did you say?
we knew it, our 2 hours on the river were up. We ventured back into the French Quarter, stopping by on Bourbon Street for some hot dogs, and eventually to sit at one of the bars there just to listen to some more music. That's a recurring theme here, but we are in New Orleans. After that, our day was wrapped up. We made our way back to the hotel, which is pretty close to Louis Armstrong Park, so I snapped this photo of the entrance. The hotel lobby, getting ready for our transport to go kayaking. It was pretty cool. It was, I think, maybe like a half hour away from the city of New Orleans, but we got to go for maybe, 2 hours or so. Our guide was pretty cool. Now, granted, there was no alligators because this was taken in early December and most of them were just swimming deeper in the water, which is okay. We still got to see plenty of species of birds and, the bald cypress trees, which I love, and, the ones that are covered with Spanish moss, and virtually anything else you can imagine seeing in a swampland. It was also cool because I'm no stranger to kayaking, but it was Teresa's first time, so I was very happy to be able to, I gave her a reason to go kayaking, so she got to try and she loved it, so it's a win all around. So that was our morning, early afternoon. Now for the late afternoon, we eventually made it to St. Louis Cemetery number 1. Now I don't know if you know this, but in case you don't, New Orleans cemeteries are above ground primarily due to the city's low elevation and high water table. They'd be more prone to flooding and soil instability, so just wanted to point that out. Now, St. Louis Cemetery number 1 is home to around 100,000 deceased. And now, Marie Laveau is a common grave or common tourist site that people go there for. Also there would be the tombs and members of Andrew Jackson's army from the Battle of New Orleans, which I thought was pretty neat. And even a couple, well, like the one is like a miniature looking pyramid, and here I guess it's gonna be Nicolas Cage's tomb eventually, the actor, and I think he paid around $40,000 just to make sure he had that, so that's interesting. That sums up the St. Louis Cemetery, at least from our perspective, so after we got something to eat at one of the bars close to Bourbon Street, which eventually led us back to Bourbon Street, where we found a nice bar and listened to some music again. The next morning, we had a quick breakfast at Fleur de Lis, which is an affordable, cool breakfast spot right on Charter Street. We're on the balcony section. Anyway, we got our bus, and we're heading out to the Oak Alley Plantation House. Now, this property was originally a sugar plantation, also an abandoned investment property, a cattle ranch. It's been many things over its 200 years of history, but most notably would be its background involving slavery. So between 1836 and the Civil War, the Oak Alley Plantation enslaved between 110 and 220 men, women, and children. Enslaved people would stay in living quarters, what you see here, between the mansion and the sugar mill that was there. I just had to make sure I definitely said that. I'm going to leave that part out. Just glad because it's good to keep stuff like this preserved, just to remember how far we've come. The remainder of our time there was spent checking out the surrounding property and getting a nice tour of the mansion, but you could not take photos. However, despite some of the scars of its past, it was a very beautiful property. Now, that was our trip to Oak Alley Plantation. Now back to Bourbon Street. Had to show that clip that Teresa got, so that was pretty cool. Some of the street performers. Now, after that, we got some ice cream, got to relax a little bit, and then we were on our way to see some jazz music at Preservation Hall. Unfortunately, you couldn't take any pictures or video during their performance, which is understandable. Either way, we enjoyed it. Afterwards, we got burgers and listened to some more music.
Everybody
next morning, we got to check out a little bit of the New Orleans Pharmaceutical Museum. We arrived late, so we just had enough time to kind of walk around briefly and get a couple pictures. Still cool. On the corner of St. Philip Street, we went to Lafitte's Blacksmith Shop, which is, I think it has one of the oldest running bars in the country, if I remember correctly. But we stopped there before making our way to the Bywater District, which isn't too far. It was probably like a 30-minute walk, but we were in the mood, so we just walked in. Lots of cool graffiti along the way, and either way, just lots of cool stuff to see. We're trying to get to this barbecue place called The Joint. Top 3, maybe even the #1 best barbecue I probably had. So again, if you happen to make it down to New Orleans, and I highly recommend The Joint. Now for a walk back to the French Quarter. Checked out some of the local graffiti again, very cool. There's also lots of beautiful shotgun homes, but since the loss of my phone, I only took limited photos. I'm sorry. And then the remainder of our day, we ended up getting Banana Foster's. That's me there with it. And then listen to more music.
Yeah, we're listening to the music sound and the boys all gather their mouths around the just to see Egyptian airline. With folks on low in the caravan stock, holding to the dance and holding your feet, Egyptian airline.
The next morning around 4 a.m., Teresa had to leave, and she took this picture of me in front of the hotel from her taxi. And another beautiful trip done, but I still had a couple days left, and sadly it mostly rained. Luckily there was a Hood gas station a couple buildings down, and on my last day I had chicken fingers and fries before I packed up, and I too returned home. Again, guys, thank you. I know this slideshow wasn't the best, but I really did try. Better videos to come.
He'll be lead a band to a good old